some of our early press, and they would be like, the Black Girl Magic Agency and all of these things. And there's no such thing as Black Girl Magic. We are amazing. We are humans, though. We're not some like mythical fairies that come in and save people's lives.
This is the first time that you've made me coffee during this podcast.
And that's not even my best work.
Okay, let's see.
Like, that's nothing.
That's nice.
Yeah, listen, that was
That-
amateur hour.
Hazelnut?
Yeah, I know.
Mhm.
No, with a little bit of cookie.
I always doubt the cookie because I'm like, what does a cookie taste like? And
You never like snuck little nibbles like when it was getting made in the kitchen? You never?
yeah, but in coffee?
Yeah, but think about it, because it's like the milky chocolatiness of coffee plus those little nibbles.
Yeah, I enjoy this.
Dessert heaven.
Now I know.
I'm
Okay.
glad you do. Yeah.
I had a revelation this morning.
What was the revelation?
I had two, actually. The
Mhm.
first is that the secret to being on time is lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't lie to yourself about most things, but when it
Yeah.
comes to being on time, you should grossly overestimate how long everything takes.
You have a
So,
point.
so I literally will tell myself, "Oh, you have to be there at 9."
Mm-hmm.
But you really have to be there at 10. I tried to do it with you, but you still missed the lie. And so now I'm like, okay, I have to buffer his by 2 hours because I gave you the same lie I gave myself. And yet,
To be fair, it wasn't that I missed the lie, right? We're dealing with a situation. You know the situation we're dealing with in this area with the Ubers dropping us off 3 blocks.
I know, but we've been filming this podcast now for
I know they've never done that to me, and that was the interesting part. The one morning I was like, "Really, sir?" But my theory is that conservatism is going to make a comeback because people are afraid.
okay.
So
I mean, I can already see this. I mean, this is already
exactly, but I called this like 5 years ago, but now I have to say it again. You know how like it's like I didn't really trademark it, but
ahead
but
of your time.
I see. But what I feel is like it was too much progression too fast, and it's throwing people off, and ultimately like everyone just feels scattered, and that scattered energy. One of the very few things that could bring it back together is, some level of doctrine.
So thankful for so many opportunities in this country, but it's
Mhm.
literally born
Yeah.
on so many lies.
Yeah.
Like so many like I go to when you like do the museum tours, you do the museum tours down in the South, when they say, "Oh yeah, John Jenkins built this house in
Mhm.
1863." When I was 5 and 6, I'm like, "Wow, he built this house in 1863." And the fine print is John Jenkins enslaved people who never got compensated. I mean,
Yeah,
but
I like to call it America the startup story. Like, the original startup. It is the original story if you think about it. But think about it. It started from nothing. A bunch of little coders said this is going to be a country. And then everybody was like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. This is kind of weird. Like, you guys feel like rejects. And they're like, nah, we have a vision.
Mhm.
Right? And then they got everybody's face booked. And then you see the pun I did there? That was
No,
intentional.
yeah, Facebook, yes, we're with you.
And basically, and now it's basically a wild zoo, and we're dealing with the consequences because I think it's about to go into the corporate era of its enterprise. It's not going to be an
Yeah.
empire anymore. I think it's just going to be a business.
I think we're already kind of seeing it, and I think it's almost kind of like anything but the actual problem is what we will talk. It's so anything but
Agreed.
the actual
But
problem.
it's beautiful though. Like for someone like you're a warrior. In that sense.
No,
If
I don't want
America,
to be a warrior anymore.
you don't want to be a warrior anymore.
Mm-mm. This is
It's the look up. I don't want to be a warrior anymore.
no, because this is what they. I am so grateful
Uh-huh.
for my 20s.
Yeah,
Because she was focused.
she was a fighter.
She was a warrior.
Yeah, a warrior. Exactly.
She was working at NBC
Uh-huh.
from 8 to 6, eating empanada mama,
Oh God.
going to Watch What Happens Live at 11 p.m. live,
hmm
and then coming home and doing CultureCon from like 2 a.m. to like, who was that? I don't.
That was
Thank you.
That
Thank
was
you. But
designated ADHD. That's
it was.
you did great.
But I say that to say I feel like for a lot of us, they told us like to start, but they
Mhm.
never told us when we're supposed to stop. And even like I now reject. Oh, you're so strong. No.
I don't think builders and dreamers are ever supposed to stop. I think that's just the consequence of having that gift.
Oh, don't tell me that. I
Like
mean,
it's not supposed to be seamless. I don't think that you can get that and not have the consequences of the gift.
not seamless, but seasonal, sustainable.
Mm,
Because I think those bursts of energy, like even when
Yeah.
you think about, so I was a sprinter,
mm.
and at my young
We
age,
can tell. We see the jawline. Chisel.
but
Okay.
at the very young age of 17, I told my coach, I was like, okay, I can run around this track one time.
Mhm.
And I was like, so at 800, I'm not doing an 800. I can give you the most I can one time. I'm someone, people probably, I don't know what people think, but I'm gonna try my best to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
I hate a redo. I hate a, oh, you,
And that's what I'm saying. And that's the price of that magic. You see, like, for me, like when I first tried track, because when I first came to this country, the first thing that the coach said in the school was that, hey, you're African. A lot of the African guys here are good at like sports. So you should be good at running, right?
Wait, hey, you're African?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not get into that. It's
I'm sorry.
fine. Okay. Yeah. So the coach was like, you're good at running. You should be good at running. And then he just mentioned a bunch of miles. And I said, yeah, I could do that. And then I started running. And it was maybe like half a mile, if not almost. And I lost my breath. And I collapsed. And then they had to have people come help me up. And I just was like, you know what? I know my strengths.
Know thyself.
And that's the kind of, like, I was like, I'm not that person. But that's why I said the gift. If I was able to push as far as you did and go as far as you did in track, I don't think I would have been able to stop. But that was your strength. Your strength is when you have drive for something, when you're passionate about something, and you do it. But you are expecting that to be seasonal. No.
I'm expecting short spurt. I believe in exerting energy
Mm-hmm.
and then resting and regaining that energy. I am not, who was it? Oh, we were talking earlier and I was like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, life's never hard. I feel like that's how people literally implode. And I'm moving into a season of my life where I think I am like, yes, I do want to learn how to put energy into interior design. All the energy doesn't have to go into this business.
I agree.
Because in my first season, that's where all the energy went. And it's like, whoa, that energy can go into planning parties for my friends.
But that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. Like
it just goes somewhere else.
Designated.
But I don't know if it needs to be as intense. Because I think as things scale and
do you think that you're ever capable of not?
That's what my mom says.
Yeah,
my mom says when I was in high school, she was like, Imani, you would quit debate club, be like, oh, I'm free, and come home and be like, okay, I started the track team.
Exactly.
It will be an experiment to see where the energy can go. But
when do you stop? No.
I don't think you stop. I think
it makes greatness. Like, comments don't stop. It's just what it is.
Okay.
I know I don't stop. I'm stubborn about my opinions.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, and then I'm gonna go
exactly.
stop. I'm like, okay. That's another new thing. I used to literally need to have the last word.
Yeah.
And now, what is this? Is this growth? I literally will say, growth. Okay.
Yeah, because I learned that if you sometimes
you got it.
Like there's no cons to not knowing.
Because how can you debate someone about yourself? You should just stop.
Exactly.
If someone's telling you what you are and aren't going to do, you gotta just show them
something they never studied before. You're trying to like argue them about a course you've taken your whole life, which is you.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of just like knowing when to start, knowing when to stop, I think as I reflect back, hot take, that when you are dating someone, maybe even for the first 3 months, you should not tell your friends about it. Well, okay. Not that you shouldn't tell your friends about it. You should not give your friends play by play by play by play. Because whatever cadence you start, you can't then be mad at them for asking for updates. And sometimes you need to figure out what you like before your friend tells you, girl, why you wear your shorts so tight? Maybe you like that. Maybe you like that. And now you're confused.
Maybe you like a little lavender. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe.
Yeah.
What? No, stop.
What?
See how I didn't know you meant the other lavender. I thought you meant the color.
What if it was the color?
What do you feel? Like when you're dating someone, are you putting it in the group chat immediately?
No, definitely not. I do not share my personal relationships because I don't think that they're going to navigate my relationships the way I am.
Well, okay. So here's a question. If your family, not annoyed with, not confused by, does not like your partner.
Oh boy.
They're like, no, this ain't it. They ain't it. Are you staying with that partner?
Oh, man. That's a very new age progressive idea of it, isn't it? Because then you got to just like sitcom it, cut the family off and just you and the girl in the apartment. But I think it depends on how much you like her or love her. I think it depends. At some point, you will draw that line in the sand. But it depends on how much you like or love her. Is it family or... And to be honest, these days, in a more individual-driven culture, how often are you... So I think 9 times out of 10, you might pick... But wait, family though.
It's my family.
Yeah, it's family.
And the thing about me is I have a big family and they're all very different. Yeah. I have 2 sisters. One's a farmer, one's a veterinarian. one sister don't really like a lot of people. The other
One of the
sister,
front one's a veterinarian. That is wow.
yeah, the other
You guys
sister,
need a show.
the other sister loves everyone. I got a little brother who stays out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, dad. If all of these individuals, all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all so different. If my baby sister, who literally loves turtles,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like you, I just have to look deep within
I mean, you
within
know what they
myself.
say though. Kids are usually a good indicator.
Oh, she's not a kid.
What's a baby sister? How
We're
old?
all 2 years apart. She's 32.
Oh
We're all
God.
adults.
My baby sister. I was like, that's a grown woman.
She's a grown woman. My
Yeah.
grown sister.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's just when you say baby,
But the
it's
way
like
this, siblings, we
the way I
stay.
visualized it was a 2-year-old going, nah, he's not 6 foot.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, I had an ex that I adored a lot,
Uh-huh.
but I had blind spots because we were in our own little world, our own little like Xbox world. I learned how to play Xbox.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And
Look
I
at
brought-
you falling for the nerds.
I know, I kind of liked it. I was like, oh, he's so
Of course you
nerdy.
did. Yeah.
We'd already put him at the
And
end.
it was a great place to channel again the passion, the yearning. I'm just saying.
You're really trying to make that stick, huh?
Because it is a thing. It's a consistent trait across your life.
Playing Xbox is the same as yearning?
Yes, because you meet a guy and you have the passion to go learn all of that. Do you know how many women don't want to do that?
I just like to learn. Like, it doesn't have to be a romantic thing. Like,
well, do you think it's normal? Do you think it's just everyone's just going around learning Xbox with a guy that they're interested in?
I think a lot of women would learn how to play Xbox. But anyways, I was just saying that like in our own world, I really was like, oh, I can see this play out
Mm-hmm.
for a partnership. This
Yeah.
is so great. And then introduced to my larger family, we had this whole dinner, and this is
Mhm.
how I know we're sitting at the dinner. And my family, we all have our places at the table,
Mhm.
and they're all asking different questions. They're all trying in their own way to find
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
And every time they throw a ball, he just never catches it.
Yeah.
So my dad's like, oh, do you want a beer? And he's like, no. And my mom's like, oh, like, do you want to take a walk and look at the garden? He's like, not really. I'm like, wait, why are you acting like this? Act normal. What are you doing?
What's normal though?
That when someone asks you a question, you give a sentence of an answer. Maybe if it's the
Oh.
first time you're meeting someone's family.
But not everybody gets that. And also,
'Cause
you're dealing with a gamer.
And
Social skills were not
I guess.
at peak.
But the looks around, I could feel it. My sister's like, mm. My brother's like, mm. And my dad's like, mm.
So when
we didn't
first of all,
last
the
very
dad
long.
is killing me.
None of these were
So-
noises. They were just like
so,
I could feel.
So when someone's dating you, they have to date your family essentially.
No, they shouldn't date my family, but the things that are important to me in the same way that Xbox was important to him, and so that
Mhm.
became something that I was curious about.
Yeah.
You should be at least curious about things that are very important to me. So a family, if you know me, I am a family girl.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that you and my dad alone need to go fishing every
But
Saturday.
Xbox is abstract. You know what I'm saying? Family is it's very emotive. It's a
I
very
guess what I'm saying is that things that are of interest to your partner
Mhm.
cannot become like meh to you. And what he kind of said was he was so focused on me, he didn't really consider the dynamic with my family. And to me, I was like, oh, no.
Oh no.
I know.
Not his own love for you being the Achilles heel.
How do you take everything I say and make it sound like a rom-com?
Because perspective.
Perspective.
All I'm saying is, for what I learned here, is that you actually don't mind guys who play video games. But the takeaway though, this like, are you done with video game guys or?
Wow, that's the takeaway. Okay.
No, besides that part.
But I think it is. I think all of this goes into like figuring out what works for you. And, today we're talking to a friend of mine. She's a CEO, co-founder of this incredible agency called 19th and Park.
Nice.
And the whole kind of like impetus of her story is that she's working in this role, hybrid role, sales, creative, and she's killing it. And she asked her manager for a promotion. And instead of the manager being like, well, here are kind of like what I need to see, or like, here's the runway that we
Mhm,
need to do, her
mhm.
manager's like, you need more experience. So she ends up leaving
Mm-hmm.
and doing it her way,
Come on,
becoming an
Lifetime.
entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
And she has bootstrapped an 8-figure business,
Oh.
no VC. And so
No VC.
No VC.
Oh.
I mean,
Well.
so I'm excited to talk to her because I think when you think about dating, when you think about the rules of your life, when you think about even like what you like,
Mhm.
I think so much of sometimes why we don't trust ourselves or why we don't feel like we're doing it right is we're following other people's blueprints.
Absolutely.
It's not going to work for you. You
No.
can learn from it. Baby, I learn from other people's mistakes, my mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What's one thing that you do like your way?
Well, to piggyback off what you said, I do like try to remind myself that all the time that like no matter how much everything that has pushed the threshold of where humanity has to go in progress has been something against what's in the textbooks.
Mm.
Like people have read the textbook and the guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
but then they do a different thing and everyone goes, "Ah, that's, that's how you do it."
It's
You know
only
what I'm saying?
crazy until it works.
Yeah. So like for me, I try to like practice that for any like thing, any of my mediums. Like if there's something that's not working, I'm like, okay, what's the one thing that you think is ridiculous and crazy, right? And do that and try. So for example, for comedy, I try to approach it with an idea of like, what if you didn't say it that way, the way that you think that everyone's gonna get and they're gonna laugh at? What if you said something that they least expected, right? Like I have this one video about like 6-foot guys dating women loving the idea of dating a 6-foot guy,
Yeah.
right? And the first time I wrote out that skit, I think my first idea of it was that I was gonna write that the woman was gonna, be like, "Oh my God, so I've always wanted a tall guy, and I think you fit the mold." And the guy was just gonna be like, "Yeah, I just wanted." I was gonna do like a Shaq voice thing on the situation, but then I kept thinking hard about it, and I was like, "That's a lot. Like you're trying to prove that you can write. Just relax, let it
Mhm.
go." What if it was something as simple as I think everybody speaks English now, just simple. What if she just talked so much and then he just went 6 foot? And
So much
every
better.
single thing that she presents, I have a 8-figure business. I have this. I've done so much. I'm killing it. And then he just goes 6 foot. She's like, "Oh my God, you're meeting my
Life is so hard.
requirements." You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that skit ended up being probably one of the biggest skits I've ever done. But it just reminded me that, like, again, you could do less, or you could do something that's just like completely different from what you know,
Mhm.
or what you think you know.
Mhm.
So I try to practice that for every single medium and every single thing I do.
Because I don't even know if it's less, it's just you. Like, when you were writing out all of that, that's not really what it sounds like you wanted to say. You were just like, "This is kind of what people have done."
Yeah.
But when you were like, "No, like, the way that I'm, like, digesting this is that this is what I'm seeing, and then it's 6 foot."
Hmm.
I think when it hits like that, it's because people are like, "Yep, that's it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
so
then you realize that you did something that you'd never done before. And that's usually where the magic comes from.
Mhm.
That little bell curve, like you just hit the unpredictable, the magic,
Perfect.
you know?
I agree. Let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Today, I am with one of my North Stars and mentors. I can't believe I got you out of the house.
You got me out of the house. You got me out of retirement. This is the first time I've done an interview in years, I feel like.
You guys, this is so epic. You're going to see why in a second. Whitney Headen is the co-founder and CEO of 19th and Park and One Park 9 Studios, your production arm.
Yes.
And before we get into the empire that you have built, I love to start with one of my favorite stories, which is that you're working in this role. It's half corporate in terms of like sales and creativity, and you're killing it. And you ask your manager for a promotion, and what happens next?
I advanced really quickly through corporate America, especially in media. So my background's always been in media and entertainment. So at the time, I was working for a magazine and I was in this space of kind of pioneering what their digital offering was. Everybody was getting into the space of branded entertainment, content, and really kind of like taking publishing into the digital age. And I feel like that's always been a sweet spot of mine. Like I've been at the crux of every great media change and transition in my jobs. I've worked in radio and TV and all these spaces. So my role was really to build a new revenue stream for digital and kind of push in that direction. And I had done an amazing job. I had done an amazing job to the point like we had gotten that revenue up to 8 figures. I was in direct conversations with CMOs and CEOs. I was negotiating deals. It was large scale brands that were in it to solely just like work with me to negotiate deals and opportunities and things like that. And at the time, I was still just like on a director level. But I was doing a lot of work and a lot of things that were directly impacting the state of the business, as well as like growing and scaling in this direction. And I went in this conversation and I came in with like a negotiation.
How long had you been there?
I think I'd been there for like a year or two.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Like, what is time?
No, yeah.
What is time when you have results?
But I feel like these, the context is important because to your point, there are people that have been in roles for 10 years. There are people that have been in roles for 2 years.
1,000%.
And you want to just make sure that you're tracking what that progress looks like so that when you're asking for a promotion, it's not just because, I've been here for 5 years.
1,000%. And I think that's a whole other conversation too of like impact versus longevity, because I think so many people believe that just because you've been in a place for a certain amount of time, you deserve progression. But this is solely related to impact. Like you can stay in the same role for the rest of your life if that's what you choose to do. And I think in the space that I was in, it was like a lot of legacy people that have been there for quite some time in situations like that. And so they said no. And I was like, okay, wow, that's interesting. So like heard, but that's also not going to work. But I love my job and I loved what I was doing. I love the people that I worked with. So it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I quit and I'm going to go be an entrepreneur. Like that wasn't even on my brain. My brain was just like, okay, I need to find a way to make money because my lifestyle was increasing and I was working really hard, like 12, 13 hours a day, always on a plane, always on a sales meeting. And I loved it. I was young, I was single. And so I started hiring my friends to do production work.
I want to go back because we're going to get into the entrepreneurship and how you have scaled, bootstrapped, no VC. But I actually want to spend more time in corporate because I don't think people really discuss as much as they should the strategy of what it looks like to grow in corporate. When I was in corporate, and I love how much your story reminds me of mine because I didn't want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I wanted to sit in the corner office and work in corporate and kind of got pushed into being an entrepreneur. But there is strategy into growth. And so when you talk about I was delivering, I was able to show what I was delivering. Can you give us some of the strategy as you were growing in this corporate role? How did you understand that it's not enough just to work hard in the back corner and expect that you're going to grow?
It's funny whenever people ask me this, I always say, like, I never knew that people didn't want to hear my opinion. So when you're in meetings and conversations and things, I always had something to say. I always had input. I always had something additional to add, even when I was an assistant. Like I got hired for my first job as an assistant and my boss wanted me to like clip newspaper articles for him. And I was like, who's doing that? I think I did it like once. And I was like, so anyways, about the project that you're working on, I think this makes a lot of sense. And this is where I think we could go with it. And he gave me a look like, who the hell is this girl? But he was like, also, that's a great idea. And I didn't really know that I was strategizing in corporate as much as I was just being myself and having a voice and also being able to take feedback and understand things going around. So I think in the corporate strategy, less about how to be heard and seen. Mine was like when to pivot. And I would be in meetings as an assistant saying like, this is where everything's growing, like the amount of audiences we can reach, the things we can do. And there was a point in time, like there was a bit of like contention about like having a manager who doesn't foster your growth. Because there's one thing when you get into like raises and things like that. There's another thing when it's like somebody is like actively trying to make sure that you stay in one place.
That was happening?
Yeah, you can't really grow there.
You talked about not being afraid of feedback, which I think is such an amazing skill. But you also need to have the discernment to know the difference between, is this feedback constructive or is this a manager that doesn't want me to move? So how did you know this is what that was?
Yeah, and I don't even think it was like intentional.
Okay.
Right? I think for her, that was how she was used to managing and having control. And there were certain things that just made sense. If I'm managing a certain account, I should be in certain rooms. I should do certain things. And she was very much like, you need to stay in this lane because this is the lane that makes sense for you. But on the flip side, our value system wasn't aligned.
Right.
We just didn't share the same vision. And I understood that there were steps that I needed to take and things that I needed to learn to progress.
And I think in everywhere in your life, in relationships and work and friendships, if you find yourself screaming into the void, and the other person never is like, wait, what? You have to go. Because
Yeah.
after a while, it's okay, they've shown you that they're not listening. So if you continue to scream into the void, after a while, it's like, why didn't you pivot? And
Mm-hmm.
I love that you say that you've always been kind of like who you were. It was more about pivoting. When I got into corporate, I think that's when I became an introvert
Mm-hmm.
because I was from also the South. I got to New York and everyone was so opinionated and loud, and they had no problem sharing what they had just done. And I was like, but I did it. I didn't know I had to tell you that I did it. It was my job to do
Yeah.
it. And I learned very quickly that if you never say anything in a meeting, if you never tell your boss what you've been working on, if you're just quiet as it's kept in the corner, that strategy, even though it felt very comfortable, I was never going to grow. And so it wasn't that I became someone different, but I absolutely was like, if you're going to have, and this is what my former boss said, she was like, Imani, you need executive presence.
Mm-hmm.
And my feelings were so hurt because that was at a time where I was like, feedback felt so personal,
Yeah.
and I was able to realize this actually is a gift because I am going into these meetings, even though I think at the time I was a director, and I'm going into meetings, Whitney, and I'm sitting in the back couch and I'm just like, I'm just going to get back to my work.
Mm-hmm.
And I started giving myself these little quests, very like incremental. And I would say, today, you're going to sit at the table. Next week, you're going to have an update. But you were always sitting at the table. You were always giving your update.
Yeah, I just never really knew that that wasn't what I was supposed to do. And honestly, sometimes and even now, still, I'm like, oh, maybe I said too much, or maybe that was like a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
But it was something that I always did. But I also had a lot of great examples of like what that looked like, I think. And I'm an observer as well. So if there's all these people speaking up, especially women at this space, like, why not me? Like, why is my opinion not valued? And I think a lot of Black women specifically, we sit into this space of, I'm just going to work hard.
Yes.
We're literally working ourselves so hard that we're making ourselves sick and we're not catching momentum. And everybody's like, well, why not? Like, I work so hard. I do so much. I help so many people. And it's like, that's not enough. It's not enough. And the fact of the matter is, majority of the people that are winning is because they're strategizing. It's because they're meeting the right people. They have the right networks. They're doing the right things. They're having a lot of discernment into what they choose to seek their energy into.
And so let's go to 10 years later. So the manager says, again, we admire you. You're doing a great job. We cannot promote you right now. You decide it's time to leave. You're hiring your friends. I want to stick there in the middle because I talk to so many founders who cannot get out of the solopreneur. They can't, they are overworked. They don't want to delegate because what if they delegate and people don't do it like them? Can you take us to the early years of when you are really deciding, I cannot just do this by myself?
Again, it was never my intent to be an entrepreneur. Even when I had that conversation, it was not even my space to be like, I have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I really love my job. I love corporate America. I love corporate cards.
Yes.
I love getting a check every 2 weeks.
Yes.
I love not having to know what's happening when I'm gone.
I was very quiet about it because I remember when I started CultureCon, people were like, oh, but you still have a corporate job. And I was like, yeah.
I don't even know when corporate jobs became bad words, but everybody believing that entrepreneurship is the only way to build sustainable life or sustainable skills are so wrong.
Absolutely.
Like, corporate can set you up in such a way that's so comforting, but it also teaches you so much.
What are your thoughts on personality and performance? So a lot of times, I think we have this kind of show up and be your full self at work and da-da-da-da-da-da. And what I found personally is that as I was stronger in performance, people were more interested in my personality.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people try to lead with personality. This is what I'm watching. This is what I'm doing, da-da-da, but your work's not done. How did you navigate that?
You can always tell the people that have actually done the work and are confident because of their skill set and what they're able to deliver. And I always say, like, there's people that you can tell they learned how to be an executive from watching television. And there is like a level of like arrogance and rudeness, and you have to like prove yourself constantly. And like, you don't have to constantly prove yourself if you're performing. if you are a high performer, if you know your stuff, then you can show up with personality because you also have facts.
Mm-hmm.
When people are asking you questions, you can deliver. When somebody asks you something, you can do it. I always say, like, your skill set is determined by, like, how quickly you can solve a problem. And there's so many people now who think that I have to show up in this certain way. Like, even, and it's like no shade to the influencers and stuff, but they're like, you just need to wear designer clothes and show up in these spaces and spend money to go to this gala to like look a certain type of way. And that's just not really how it works. Like, you still have to know what you're doing when you get into the room. You have to have something to say and bring to the table. And I think that is more important than anything. Like, you have to know what you're talking about, and you have to be confident in knowing what you're talking about, and also know what you don't know what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and be open to those spaces and being adaptable. But people do want to know who you are and how you come across, and are you likable? And in the space of, like, everybody doesn't have to be your best friend, but you want to know that this is somebody that you can spend, a significant amount of time with, somebody that you can trust.
Skill set is based on how quickly you can solve a problem. One of my bosses, my only boss, actually, I've only had one boss, which is kind of crazy, for 10 years. Then I left. She was incredible. We're still friends, but I was her assistant. And she said, Imani, I want a reservation for Del Frisco Steakhouse tonight at 7:00. So I'm her assistant. I pick up the phone. I say, hey, I need a reservation for the EVP of NBC Universal for 7:00. He goes, oh, there are none. I go, okay. I go into her office. I go, oh, there are no reservations. And she said something to me that has stuck with me for the rest of my life. She said, the answer is never no.
No.
Go get me a reservation for 7:00. I called back. I said, hi, this is Imani with NBC Universal. I'm calling on behalf of the executive vice president of NBC Universal. She needs a reservation tonight at 7:00. And it was a young woman this time. And she said, okay, for how many people?
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that that was a very simple example, but I know that there's so many people that are getting into any industry where it's like, oh, they said no.
I feel as though anybody coming up is way too comfortable with no. I can't do it. I can't figure it out. I remember once we had an assistant, and I'm a little neurodivergent. So I've used the same kind of pen since college. It's a little crazy. I really love these Pilot pens.
I was going to say, is it a Pilot pen?
It's a Pilot pen, the clicker.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I need you to go get me this particular pen. She was gone for like an hour. I went out. I went around the corner. I got the pens. I came back. I was back at my desk 15 minutes tops. I didn't tell her. I waited to see how long it was going to take her to get back. She came back with a different pen, was like, I can't find them anywhere. And I was like, I have it right here. And I was like, and I've been back for 30 minutes. She's like, oh my God, like, how did you do this? And I was like, you have to think about what is the easiest way to solve the problem. We're in New York City. I was like, you went all the way to Michael's where there's a Dwayne Reed on every corner. Did you think about going over there or doing that? And secondarily to problem solving and strategic thinking, it's care. I feel like so many people, especially the younger generation that's coming up in the workforce, they lack the care of being the person that solved the problem, of understanding that you're not just getting a dinner reservation for your boss, you are learning a tangible skill that can take you through your life and your trajectory. There's just so many things that people are just like, oh, I just put this together, I just did this. It's like, this is not done. You didn't think about this in a way of saying, this is a representation of me and my skill set and my thought process. You're just throwing something on a page and being like, this is fine because this is just what I need to do today. I'm checking something off of a box. That is really what literally is hindering people from going to anywhere next in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
There is a level of care and understanding of what the process looks like, and having to be okay with the process, having to be okay with not understanding, but caring enough to figure it out.
I saw the other day that only 1.7% of all women entrepreneurs scale beyond $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
You all are an 8-figure. I mean, just even to say, I mean, it's incredible. When you talk about building teams, when you talk about some of those first hires, and
Mhm.
even kind of this model where you had your core team and you could flex up and down based on what the project was, who were some of those first hires? And if you weren't taking on VC. You're not taking on injection of capital. You've got tons of money in the bank. The lines of credits are like, no, we're not sure. So where are you? One, how is that model propelling itself? Because you haven't started your business yet, but you're hiring people. What did that look like from that 0 to 1?
Well, I think 0 was 0.
Yeah. Well,
0 was 0.
Yeah.
And I was still in corporate, and the jobs and things that we were able to funnel through the business was really our first investors. So our first investors was ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We worked to build up capital and figure out those things. And then we all had relationships and things that we pivoted over. So it did take some time for people to see us as like not a freelancer or not somebody that I could just like hire. And it's like, now we're a company. And like, what does that look like? So building that structure, early stages, like it was like one band, one sound. Like we had a bank account, we paid our rent from the bank account. We would have like meetings and be like, what does anybody need this month? Like, do you need something outside of what we're able to provide? Because we were paying ourselves like a very, very low amount of money.
When you say we, who is in this group chat? Like how many people are here?
So originally we started off with 3 founders, and then it ended up just being 2. So Tahira and myself. So it's typically just Tahira and myself making a lot of those decisions and really figuring out what does that look like and how we're building and scaling. But we knew early on that we didn't want to do everything.
Okay.
And I feel like that's always been our mindset, and that's always been the way that we look at the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different personalities, and there's no right answer to it. Like, I would rather pay myself a bit less and be able to have staff and support and make sure that all of our paperwork is together and have HR and have legal and accountants and all of those things versus trying to, overinflate my salary and then struggle with some of the back end logistics and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have some form of a work-life balance into that, and you can't do everything. And that was something that we knew from very early on.
Whitney, this is the thing that I love about you. You're over there living your best life, and your campaigns are rolling out across Super Bowl ads, across the country, international. Like, I think a lot of times people feel like because they are Black, they can only service Black clientele. What was that very intentional in the beginning that you were going to be able to kind of have a more general market, or what was your approach there?
It was really hard, honestly. Like some of our early press, and they would be like, the Black Girl Magic Agency and all of these things. And that's like a phrase that I hate. There's no such thing as Black Girl Magic. We are amazing. We are humans, though. We're not some like mythical fairies that come in and save people's lives. So shout out to BGM, but like let's leave that in the 2020s. But
I never thought of it like that, but it does the magic makes it like come like other. Like
yeah, like we're like, no, we work harder.
We work.
Period.
Right.
It's not magic. It's literally hard work and strategy that Black women possess. We're not magical.
Come on.
We were magical, a lot of other shit wouldn't happen.
Well, right.
But
if we had our way.
Yeah. So with that, though, we were really intentional of not coming across as the Black agency, also pursuing this face of like, we can do more than one thing. I was very intentional of not doing interviews and conferences around like, what is it like to be an entrepreneur while Black? And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's the same as being an entrepreneur while white. It's hard. Saying. Yeah, it's hard. And like, you're successful for a Black company or things like that. It's like, no, actually our revenue supersedes most entrepreneurs, period. Our success supersedes most entrepreneurs,
And notice I didn't
period.
say, right, I didn't say 1.7% of Black women, right? I just said of women.
Of women. Majority of those women also never break a 6-figure mark. So there's so much that isn't said in the communities that I feel like a lot of people externally who are receiving this information are getting pressure from social media and just this over-indoctrination of like entrepreneurship glory. They don't understand that the actual stats is like majority of those people are not successful. Majority of those people have outside money, family supporting them, other things happening. There's like a lot that goes into that. But when it comes down to not being qualified as just like the Black creatives and things, we were really intentional about what kind of jobs we went out to. We were really intentional about how our branding comes across. And obviously we're Black women and we have a staff that's super diverse across all different races, ages, and everything. So we're going to have a specificity when it comes to Black audiences, but we intentionally make sure that we're showing like a full market approach, that we're working with people to see the full grasp of what's going on. And I love that where we're going into as an industry is people are understanding more that it is a full audience approach. It doesn't exist anymore just to target women. Women are so diverse. It doesn't exist anymore to just target Black people. There's so much that goes into being Black and monolithic. So it's now, there was a quote that I saw and it was like, you're targeting who's in somebody's group chat now. What is that group chat talking about? It could be finance. It could be anything. So the way that we're doing demographics and psychographics and social listening and all of those things has just completely changed, which is also different than how business was being done 10 years ago. So you have to change your approach. And you as a leader has to change with that too. I think one of my biggest flaws in work and life in general is like I am a true empath. Like I really give a fuck. Like I care about people. I care about things. I feel deeply. I understand things because I'm a human as well. And I will never be a billionaire because I can never put business over people. Like it just doesn't exist in my brain to do that. And I see people who are successful and I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
You are successful. Like when I didn't know the stats before our interview. And I didn't know, to your point, that, 90% of most women-owned business, they're not even breaking 100K. So then you go into how many are scaling beyond 1 million. That's 1.7%. This doesn't even have stats for going beyond 8 figures. So 0.05, it's so small. So you are successful, but I want to get back into empathy because we have had so many different conversations of the juxtaposition of needing to make really hard decisions and also doing it with care. So how have you navigated empathy as a leader? How have you navigated, you talked about in the beginning, you were hiring people that were friends that you knew. And as you grow and as you scale, there are times when you have to just say, this isn't working anymore. What does that look like for you?
I always say, do you want to be a boss or do you want to be a friend? And that's a really hard place to go because I genuinely love everybody that I've ever worked with. And I think everybody has always brought something to the table or a skill set that I didn't have. But there also comes a space where you have to understand, like, you're also responsible for people. I think the responsibility that comes with entrepreneurship of like somebody is feeding their family based off of the decisions that I make. When you hire somebody, you're responsible for that person. You're responsible for their livelihood. And that's a really big job. That's a big role. It shouldn't be taken lightly. And if there are things that are not working, you have to make a change. And you have to be okay with having difficult conversations. And I think, and you probably I know you experience this because we've talked about it and we've coached through it. But when you're young and you are peers with some of the people that you're hiring or working with, there's all these different levels of understanding when it comes to the fact that you're the boss.
For me, I didn't want to be the boss. I was like, I want to go out to dinner. I don't want my role to be like, guys. But you recognize that if no one is leading, where are we going? And at the end of the day, it is your responsibility. So even if you choose to give your responsibility away, that's also your decision. Yeah.
1000%. And I think, I still struggle with this all the time when it comes to loyalty, longevity, business success, and things. And that's why I said before, like, I'm never going to be able to look at someone as like just a number.
Yeah.
And that is just who I am as a person. It's also why we made decisions early on too that I don't want to be Wieden and Kidney. I don't want to scale this large where I don't know who the people are next to me or I'm so disconnected from the day to day. But at the same time, understanding when things have to change and pivot and like what needs to happen to do that, having really tough conversations, establishing the authority while also being able to allow people to lead and also showing them what leading looks like for you. Because everybody can come into a space and think that they have an idea of what it looks like. You have to decide what that looks like for you in your business, in your company. That was something that I feel like took us a minute to learn too in the early stages. It's like, you say you're a creative director, why aren't you creative directing? You know, like, why aren't you taking this thing and doing it? Because they're like, well, this is how I do this. What do you do? So coming up with true like SOPs and systems and spaces, and also realizing like sometimes when the air is sucked out of the room, like things can get to a space where people are just not happy or you're not happy and you're trying to figure it out and you're doing everything that you can within your abilities and it's not good enough. And those are the times when you need to cut ties because nobody knows the inner workings of everything that you have to do and sacrifice to even be there on the day to day.
And to your point, it would never be enough. It would never be enough information to make it all make sense. You said SOPs, and I want to go back there because I think if more people thought about SOPs, they really could start to get action items around asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, for those of you that don't know, SOPs is going to be your standard operating procedures. It's how you do things. And it sounds really complicated, but it really can start with like, how do you put meetings on your calendar?
Mm-hmm.
How do you like meetings on Mondays? Do you like meetings on Fridays? I'm going to go back to, I really want to stay in terms of making hard decisions, but I feel like when we talk about scaling, so much of that is getting the problems in your head to be solved on a piece of paper and passing that along.
It's that, and it's also understanding that everything doesn't have to go your way. Your way of doing things isn't always the right way to get the answer, but you still have to make sure that you're using the same skills to get to the answer. I see leaders who struggle with things like, well, they sent an email in a way I don't like it. Did the email do what it needed to do? Is that their personal style of writing or getting to the problem solving? Like, those aren't things that you need to really harp on. It's more so like, are they able to understand what the next steps are? I am a huge person, like, please don't come to me with a problem. Come to me with at least 3 ways that you feel like we can approach the problem, and then we can figure it out. Because if I'm thinking and solving everything for you, you're never learning. So you're going to go somewhere and be like, you don't know what you're doing. And for one, I don't want anybody to leave my business and not know what they're doing because then they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I made a Bible for how every department runs. And I realized this because I had a coordinator and they never knew what to do. Like, it was almost like they were stifled by the next step, although they'd been part of the process so much, although we had all of these complex documents and diagrams and things like that. And I'm like, you're literally stuck with like how to respond to a question. And like, that can't be where you stand. So like, this Bible is so intense. It's like, this is a sample email. These are sample problems that could come up after you send this. Like, when you send a creative proposal, these are the things we call out in the email. With that, they're learning how to manage themselves in a way that teaches them confidence in their jobs, because a lot of it comes down to not having confidence and knowing what to do. And I truly believe too, like, working from home is not something that is successful when you are very early in your career, because so much of what you learn on the job is by watching other people. Seeing how they move, seeing how they dress, seeing what they say, seeing how they host a meeting and doing that. I really think working from home is making all of us a little weird too. Like, we need to be around
We need eye contact.
people. Yes. I was reading this article, I think it was like McKinsey or something, and it was all about like, we're getting into this era of individualism, which is completely shattering what our society was built on, which was community. So with the convergence of AI and things like that, like, it's creating like hyper independence to a way that's not sustainable. In the same way that we're talking about, like, people don't have dedication in their jobs and they don't want to stay long times. It's because there is no more incentive for staying at jobs for long periods of time. There is no more gold watch. There is no more pension. When you think about our parents' generation, the pride that they had from working for companies, for building something, you never heard them be like, well, I was just like building it for this person or doing X, Y, and Z. They felt like they had a role and a space in it to like grow and lead. So now that we're in this individual revolution, it's changing the dynamics of how people work interpersonally.
Absolutely. And for those who say, well, yeah, you know, we know more. We know that there was exploitation there. We know that there were things there. And we're humans. We don't get to kind of, oh, it's only a work thing, right? It trickles into every part of your life. It trickles into everything as a boundary. I've seen now it's like, well, I don't even tell people when I have a problem with them. I just stop talking to them. And I'm not saying that everything is that. But if you're in relationship with someone, I'm not talking about someone you bumped into, you know, at a Starbucks. If you're in relationship with someone and your takeaway is that to protect your peace, you're never going to have the hard conversation, right?
Yeah.
I think that's how we start to see it oozing throughout kind of who we're becoming, you know, as a society.
And I think also that all comes down to like ego also, and like expecting people to know when they hurt you or wronged you or haven't done the thing that they were supposed to do is pure ego. Now, when you've said it,
right,
when you've made it clear that this is a boundary that needs to be crossed, or even to understand, like sometimes with yourself, like, why is that a boundary? Why do you feel violated by this thing? Like, is it because of something like personal to you? Or is it more so because something was actually violated and they maliciously had intent behind it to harm you or harm something that you were trying to do? And I think being able to sit within yourself is super important. And I think that's a skill set that a lot of people are losing, and being able to say like, okay, I could be wrong in this situation.
Well, that's it. Because, right, ego is all based on, wait, this is my perception of myself. I can't change this. I like how I think of myself. And if you're coming to me and you're giving me feedback, hey, Imani, this is a blind spot. Hey, Imani, you hurt me. I have to sit in the discomfort that even if I didn't intend it, this is what's happening. And so if it is a situation where you're like, I don't want any negative feedback, means that you're hating on me.
Yeah.
It's just so exhausting to be in community, and which is why I think most people aren't, with people who aren't open to, this isn't working. You know, I said in another episode, my mom always said, people who love you tell you the truth. And being able to have friends that are like, oh yeah, this meant that. I live for that kind of, I mean, it's not comfortable, but I think it makes people closer to be able to say, oh, I love you so much that I can actually tell you the parts of yourself that aren't so great.
My mom often says, like, the truth can really hurt. And I'm like, that's kind of the point. Like, it's not to put you into pain, but it is to stretch you. And it's up to you to decide if that's something that you want to change. Like, it's truly a personal thing to be able to do that. But being able to live in a space where people are honest with you. We say that all the time at 19th because, like, this is the most honest, safest place you'll ever be in as far as work goes. So you need to speak up. You need to say what you're feeling. You need to say when you're wronged or when you feel like an injustice is made, because some things could be personal and some things could be realistic, or there could be 20 other things that happen behind the scenes that you were not a part of that made this decision come to fruition, and it may not have even just gotten to you yet. So, like, you have to be okay with the fact that everything's not about you, and understanding that what your role is in the grander ecosystem. I think I have gotten really good in the hiring process to know what questions to ask, to understand where people are coming.
Give me a question. What do you ask? Just one.
What are your goals? Not for here, not for the job. What are your goals for your life? What do you see your life looking like in the next 5, 10, 15 years? If you tell me your goals are to open a business exactly like the one you were interviewing for, you are not for this job.
Okay, why not?
Because if you have an aspiration to be an entrepreneur and to do the same exact thing that I'm doing, you are never going to be able to work on a team to build this business.
You're thinking always of your own. You're
constantly going to be trying to build on the sidelines, and I don't think resentment is the right way, but there's always going to be this tone of like, I could do this. I could do this better. I could do this in this way. You can't. Like, it's just like when your mom tells you can't be friends with people who want your life. It's the same thing, because it never works out. When you want to do your own thing, when you have aspirations to do that, you should go do that. Or you should work in corporate America, because that's a perfect place to get a launch pad and build your business, and also have the flexibility to kind of like decide what level of effort you want to put into it. You can't do that with a startup. It's actually not fair either to the person that is investing their money and their time into helping like grow you into this space.
Ooh,
I
that's
also
good.
say all the time, like when people have like resigned or gotten other jobs, I'm like, this is not prison. Like they get so scared, or these, it's not like I don't own you. I don't own your life. I don't own your trajectory. If you feel like you can go somewhere else and get more, or if this is your time is up here, I want to provide a space where you are in the best position to do that.
Mhm.
And I get, because we're smaller and close knit, like it can give that reminiscence of a family. It's not a family.
It's not a family.
And it is a type of commitment that feels similar to a family. But if you have things that you have to do and it's not serving your needs here, you need to go. But you also need to be honest in that you're going to do that and not make everybody around you suffer because of that. Because we get into now like quiet quitting or quiet reservations, or people doing the bare minimum and just not really showing up for the job. And that's just not fair.
And I think it falls on the leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you see that there's someone who's like, well, they're not coming to work, they're not trying, it's contagious.
Yeah. No, it can be cancerous to the point where you wait too long, you have to get rid of whole teams because that happens. And, friendships are built and people get loyalties and spaces. I've had conversations before with like really hard layoffs that have had to happen. And it's been like, what kind of leader would I be if I continue to let somebody not do their jobs, continue to put you all in positions where you're working twice as hard to fill in the blanks of what they should be doing? Things are not progressing. And it's just like blatant disrespect. Like, what kind of leader would I be to allow that to continue to happen simply because there's a personal relationship attached to it? Simply because they're a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't work.
Tell me about a mistake that you've made in business. Tell me about a time where you were like, I don't know what I'm doing and I've made a mistake.
I would say our biggest mistake has probably been not doing more external marketing, not speaking more about like the things that we do and what we've been behind, because we've always been really good at working on like referral-based business, kind of in the same things that we're talking about in corporate, staying a little under the radar and things like that. I think when it comes to staff and scaling and planning, I move myself out of the process too early. I always wanted to give ownership and space for people to like decide their own leadership style, and not wanting to be a bottleneck or micromanaging, and let them move in their space. And I really should have continued to stay a part of the process and kind of wield that space too, so that everybody was operating off of my vision and not everyone else's vision of how things should be done and where it should be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it really took having to completely transition and completely revamp how the business was run to get back in the field almost and understand like, oh, this is why this wasn't working. This process doesn't make any sense. But because it was set by other people, and also we had gotten so big that I was not a part of it, but things started to crack.
One of the things that I really admire about you is how grounded you are in terms of like doing it your way. And by that, even saying, this is the kind of business to hear and I wanted to build. We talk so much about the headlines of VC and capital. And I remember when I was first starting, everyone being like, well, are you going to raise? Are you going to raise? And this was back when it just felt like a rite of passage, like what you would do if you wanted to have a successful business.
Right.
People weren't talking about what business model do you have? Does that make sense for VC? How did you know I'm going to go the bootstrap route?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting VC. What you've done is remarkable without injection of capital. And was that a strategic decision in terms of, I've read the fine print, I realize I have to pay this back? It's not just the headlines. I'm now going to be reporting into these investors. Or was it just like something that just evolved over time that you were like, well, we're making money. We actually don't need capital.
Capital is important.
Mm-hmm.
the type of capital you get is even more important. But my issue with authority has always stopped me from wanting to have a board of directors to report into. The amount of where we have to pivot and trust our gut to do what's right for us, to do what's right for our livelihood long term, that has always been important to me. And I think we've had a lot of conversations as well of like, what's the worst situation that can happen? Like if it doesn't end up in a big acquisition or whatever, what is the day-to-day life that we want to live with this business? I've said to some people before too, is like, I'm perfectly fine of where we're at in a revenue space. I don't need to scale to a billion, 100 million, and all of those things. Scaling is important. I think you can scale financially in a lot of different ways. But for me, it's more important that I enjoy what I'm doing every single day. It's more important that I still have the flexibility to be with my family, that my staff has the flexibility to do other things that they're able to enjoy, that we're able to pay ourselves, livable, comfortable wages as well as everybody else. It's not necessarily my personal trajectory to get to that space. I've always said, like, once we hit a certain amount, I gotta go. My skill set exists in this pocket. There are people that are born and bred to be CEOs and scale businesses and do that. I'm not one of those people. I'm great in like the startup scale of space, like mid-level space, revenue-wise, people-wise. I don't want to have that kind of pressure on me on the day-to-day because then the work suffers. The decisions get muddier. I think we're in such an interesting revolution in the individual economy where it comes to smaller businesses, smaller agencies, smaller spaces, because all of these bloated, inflated places, they're forced to do things that they don't want to do. They're forced to not pay livable wages because they have to manage what their stock price is. They're forced to take on jobs and roles or do unethical things in business because they're constantly looking at their bottom line in that way. I don't ever want to have to live like that.
So much has changed in the last 10 years. In the last 5 years, you got married.
Yes.
You started a trend with that all the girls love now, where you had swag and camp and people could, I mean, it was beautiful. As you look forward, what are some goals that you have for yourself personally outside of work?
You know what's so interesting? I'm in this weird space where I currently don't have goals.
I love it.
And it's so weird. I'm a Virgo. I am a person that thrives off of goals and lists and things. And I feel like everything that I set out, and I had this list in my phone, and I've had my goals mapped out for the past 10 years. I started writing it when I was 25. Now I've checked off all of these things that I thought was the ceiling. And I reached that ceiling, and I realized I never made a part two. I never made like what happens when you build the business, when you buy the house, get the dog, get the husband, do all of these things. Like, what does that look like? And I'm in this space of like, what does that look like for me? And everything else, I'm like, I don't know. I'm with the vibes. Like, whatever kind of comes up and figures itself out, I feel like I'll have a day where something will hit me of like what I want that full trajectory, and I'll maybe build another list. Or maybe I won't. And I'm like perfectly fine. I'm like halfway fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little like, okay, I don't know what life is like without having like a tangible thing to want to conquer. But I also think that's like where my next chapter is, to be okay without having those things and figuring out like, what does that look like for me?
Whitney, I love that. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. This has been amazing. I'm so glad we actually got to sit down and talk in front of other people.
Right, because we've been yapping. You've been giving me so much advice. I'm so thankful for you. And I think it's just a testament to how important mentorship is in actuality. Someone who's already been where you're trying to go, even if it's not exactly the way you're trying to do it, but can help you through, really hard decisions. So
yeah,
thank you.
1000%. And I learned so much from you.
Oh, thank you.
Just even by seeing you and seeing how you've grown and leaned into your leadership and your personality and just yourself. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes.